mother who fits the category and let them pick out which one they want, all right? So which mother has, let's see here. Who am I kidding, right? Get my glasses here. All right. Which mother has been a mother the longest? Now, the way you figure that out is how old your oldest child is, okay? All right, so which mother has been a mother the longest? All right, who's been a mother for 50 years? Okay, 1, 2, 3, all right. Who's been a mother for 60 years? 60 years? Okay, we got two of them. 65 years. 65 years. Okay, anybody? All right, congratulations, the mother for 65. All right. All right, which mother has the youngest child? The youngest child. Which mother has the youngest child? Anybody got a child? Wait a minute. Does anybody want to make an announcement? Somebody making an announcement. All right. Who's got a child under 1? Anybody got a child under 1? Who's got a child? Oh, okay, okay. The next question. Which mother has the most kids present? Most kids present.
If I can count in-laws, outlaws, grandchildren, come on. You still have 4. You still have 4. You better count, Mom.
Okay, yeah. Anybody got over 4 present? All right, Miss Jill.
I want to give mine to Bessie because she has 2 of her children, one in the hospital recovering from surgery and one in ER.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Which woman? All right, and we're saying which woman has seen the passing of her mother in the last year and just lost their mom? And okay, all right. Haley is a woman. Saw the passing of a mom. All right, you want to get her a flower? Yeah, they all 3 can get it. All right, which mother/grandmother, okay, has the most children and or grandchildren under 1 roof? Living under 1. Joel, are you identifying as a woman today? All right. How many are kids and grandkids living with you? How many? Oh, 8's enough. So, all right, good. Yeah. All right. I think, is there any other categories that missing here? No? All right. All right. All right. Let's give all our moms a hand. All right. On your way out, there'll be a usher in the back, and every mother present gets a flower. They're not quite as special as those big ones, but it's a nice flower, and so everybody gets a flower on the way out, all you moms, all right? All right. I'm sorry? Oh, adoption? Okay, adoption. Who's adoption? Pam. Where's Luke? Luke? All right. We need one for Pam. Adoption mother. All right. Anybody else? Any other categories we should have? All right, Pam, they're bringing you one there. I'm sure that's the one you would have picked out too. All right, let's dismiss our kids at this time. All right, you want to take your Bible to John, and we will begin in John 20. But before we get to that verse, I would want to make a few opening comments. All right, I think that there are two misunderstood words in Christendom. Okay, in the church, two misunderstood words. Now, the two words I'm talking about, in the secular world, we have no problem with them. Okay? But as soon as we bring the words into the church, they almost take on a mystical kind of era about them, or meaning about them. The two words are this: belief and faith. All right? Belief and faith. In the secular world, you know what believe means. To believe something, you get it. You know what it means. To be technical, if you want to talk about Webster's dictionary, belief is to accept something as true. All right? Then that's what it means, to accept something as true. And you're thinking right now, well, preacher, that's what it means, in the church too, to accept something as true. Yeah, but that's not how we always use the word. And faith is a complete trust or confidence in someone or something. So we understand the meaning of belief. I accept that to be true. I believe that because I accept it to be true. If there's something that you know is not true and you say, but I believe it, that it doesn't make sense. You don't. Then you're not being honest. But to believe something is to accept something to be true. And to have faith in something is to have a complete trust or confidence in that thing or person that you have faith in. So we believe something, and when we believe something, it's based on two things. And by the way, we oftentimes use the words interchangeably in Christendom. We don't in the secular world, but in church we sometimes use them interchangeably. But when we believe something it's based on two things. We believe something to be true based on evidence. We believe something to be true based on evidence. We saw something that caused us to believe it to be true. All right? So, if a woman's expecting, I'm trying to pull the mother thing in, okay? If a woman's expecting, you saw the baby bump. That was the evidence. So you believe it to be true, that she's expecting, right? Now, the other reason you believe something is not just because of evidence, but you also can believe something because of your confidence in the source of the information. Think about it. Your confidence in the source of the information. See, and honestly, I can get a little off track here a little bit, and so you'll give me some space, all right? I have a hard time believing the news because I don't have confidence in the source of information. They've been obviously biased one way or the other. I don't care if you're conservative or liberal, but they, depending on the news, you just think, okay, I don't have confidence in them. But if you got confidence, you know what? You know that 8 times 8 is 64. Is that correct? 8 times 8 is 64. Yeah, this would really be a bad illustration if I had the wrong numbers. All right, so you know, you went home from 4th grade, and your teacher told you 8 times 8 is 64. You believe it because you have confidence in your teacher. You don't believe it because you set up the evidence. You know, you got 8 apples, and then you made 8 rows of 8 apples, and then you counted them all. 1, 2, 3. Now, you don't. You just believe what the teacher's telling you is true. So that's why we believe stuff. We either have the evidence that it's true, or we have a confidence in who told us, and we know that to be true. So in the realm of religion, though, belief's been taken on this mystical connotation. Sometimes we confuse it with faith. Sometimes we confuse it with hope. You know, and you know, are they coming? Well, I hope so. And hope's good, by the way. Are they coming? Well, I hope so. And we think, okay, he believes he's coming. No, he's hoping he's coming. Has he ever come before? No, but I believe he's coming this time. That's hope. So we oftentimes confuse it with hope, but and honestly, when it comes to religion kind of hijacking the terms belief and faith, all right, you know, and we put some mystical connotation onto it, and that we just don't take it at face value. We divorce ourselves from reason. And when I say, you know, we divorce ourselves from reason, it's like, okay, in the church world, we sometimes say, well, you need to believe harder. That doesn't make sense. You need to have more faith, and then you can, that in secular world, that doesn't make sense. But we say, oh, you got to have more faith. In the church world, we think, oh, well, I'm lacking here. But that's not. You see what I'm saying? We kind of hijack these words, and we have a kind of a generic way of justifying someone's salvation. In other words, you know, somebody would say, okay, you know, are you saved? Well, you know, I'm a believer. I believe. And we'll tell them, you know, you just got to believe. Well, what does that mean exactly? In the real world, you know, do you believe that? You just got to believe. Now, if you're an independent fundamental Baptist, okay, it's like this. You just got to believe, brother. Right? I mean, that's what's going on? What should I think? How should I? Well, you just got to believe. Take it by faith, brother, sister. I used to say brethren, sisterin, but sisterin's actually holds a lot of water. Anyway, the fact is that we've taken these words and hijacked them. John, well, it's easy when someone just says you just got to believe, right? And when it's talking about your faith in Christ, or when it's talking about, you know, Christianity, and they just say, well, you know, you just got to believe, that kind of faith where you just kind of got to believe, it's easy to be talked out of. I want to say that again. When you have a generic, I believe, just in general, I believe, it's easy to be talked out of that kind of faith, because you haven't pinpointed the evidence or the confidence in the person who told you that. So a guy named Frank Turek. okay? Frank Turek, he's British, and he was a scholar, modern-day scholar. He died a few years back. But in talking about this subject, okay, he said the reason so many people are easily talked out of Christianity is because they were never talked into it in the first place. They just somebody said, well, you just got to believe, and they just went with it. But then someone come along, usually in college or, somebody at work, all right, when they got older, somebody come along and they gave them all these reasons that Christianity is a joke. And what are they doing? They're making a case to talk people out, to justify their position. And a lot of people kind of walk away from their faith. And I'm not talking about salvation, don't misunderstand me, because once you're saved, you're always saved. Once you've turned your life over to Christ, He becomes your Father. You can't be unborn. You're born into the family of God. You can't be unborn. You can deny, but God will never leave thee or forsake thee. So we're talking about people who truly, consistently, honestly want to follow Christ. But so many people can be talked out of that because they were never really talked into it. Somebody just come along and said, you got to believe, brother. You got to believe, sister. And you went with it. And no one ever really, showed you this is the evidence. Or that you never realized, the person that told me this, I have total confidence in them. I trust them. So, John, in the book of John, and this is John, the gospel writer. This is not John the Baptist. It is not John Mark. All right, there's two other Johns, but this is John that wrote the gospel. And just to be clarified, this has nothing to do with the message, but I figured out John's last name. Okay, so you know how a lot of us get our names, like Johnson, right? Johnson is John's son, or the son of John. They didn't have surnames back then, so oftentimes they would say, okay, this is Peter, son of Jonah, right? So we know which Peter that is. All right, so this was John. So here's where we're going. Johnson, right? John had a father, son of, anybody? John, son of, say it again, Zebedee. Okay, so this is John's last name. John Zebedee's son. Right? I mean, that would be his name today. So just to clarify, I told you it had nothing to do with the message. Just to clarify it, the gospel writer of John wrote Revelation, 1st, 2nd, 3rd John, is John Zebedee's son, because he was Zebedee's son. Everybody nod if you get that. I don't know what it is with you people. Wake up. That is hilarious, all right? So we got John Zebedee's son, and he has a belief system, all right? John, and you got to think of what John did. He didn't follow Jesus Christ, right? Because someone said, well, you got to believe. You just got to believe, John. Just believe. He didn't follow Jesus Christ for that reason. John didn't walk away from his father's fishing business. By the way, his father had more than one boat. His father had servants working on those boats. He walked away, and I won't call it a fishing empire, but he had a family business that was doing pretty well. So well that both his sons felt they could walk away and their dad would not be left hanging because there was servants. John didn't walk away from his father's fishing business because of someone just said, yeah, you got to believe. He walked away because he saw evidence. He walked away because of what he saw and what he heard, and the confidence he had in the person that was delivering the information. So John, he just didn't follow Jesus by faith. He actually had good reason to. Now, This is John chapter number 20. We're going to spend most of our time in John chapter number 2. But this is John chapter number 20. And this is toward the end of the book. And you guys remember back in school and you had to write a thesis? How do you start your thesis, right? You start with a purpose statement. This is what the thesis is all about, right? John saves the purpose statement for the end of the book. Okay, so that's what we're talking about. So he says, okay, everybody, here's why I wrote the book. All right? Many other signs truly did Jesus in the presence of his disciples. In other words, there was a handful of us guys, 12 in specific, who saw Jesus do signs, miracles, which were meant to be signs. All right? He did these in the presence of his disciples. And in fact, there's so many. He did so many. I didn't have enough space in this book to write it down, or the letter to write it down. So John writes a letter and he says, you know what? Jesus did a lot of signs. And the signs had a purpose. The signs were evidence to us. In fact, he did so many signs, I didn't bother to write them all down. But these are written. The ones that he did write about, the ones John did write about, these are written that ye might believe. That you're not just saying, you got to believe, brother. But you're actually saying, I believe because of the things that Jesus did. And I have confidence in the guy telling me what he did, because this guy wrote a letter over 2,000 years ago, and it's still up and going. It's still a living word. It's still being published every day. And there's no end to it. If he was not a credible witness, that his writings would have disappeared a long time ago. I think of a thesis I wrote in Bible college, I don't even believe it anymore. I mean, it wasn't credible, I mean, it was, but, it was lame. Okay, but the fact is we have confidence in what John, who lived with Jesus for 3.5 years, was tutored by him for 3.5 years. What John saw, what John heard. So, and John saying, I saw him do these signs. And I'm telling you about the signs he did. In fact, John records, and we're going to go through the next 7 weeks, we're going to go through 7 of the signs, 7 miracles that Jesus did, and what was the purpose of them. He wasn't showing off. He wasn't just doing a random act of kindness. It had a purpose. It was a sign. And these are written that you might believe. And believe what? The purpose of the sign. Why did he do it? That you might believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Messiah. Christ is not his last name. Christ is a title. So, that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God. And the result of that believing that Jesus is the Son of God, then believing you might have life through his name. So it's not just you got to believe, brother. It's way better than that. It's a belief system. It has a beginning and an end. It has a purpose, and the purpose is eternal life. So when someone says, "Yeah, I just believed. I'm not sure what I believe, but I believe." You tell me what I believe. No, you realize now that Jesus did some things to prove that he is who he said he was, and we, by looking at the evidence and believing in something and having confidence in the person who told us about it or wrote us about it, we have eternal life. That's salvation. Here's the system. Here's the steps, if you will. All right. First, you have an event, and the event is the scene, the backdrop. Okay, you're a little late on that. All right, but anyway, there's a backdrop to a sign, to a miracle. So whatever that situation might be, God has allowed it or set it up or made it to be so, and He does a sign at that event. And the sign now serves as evidence. Well, now that you have proof, you can believe in something, and when you believe in something, that leads to faith. That I've got a confidence that really happened. Why? Because eyewitnesses saw it, eyewitnesses wrote about it. It's been 2,000 years and they're still talking about it. If it was nothing, it would have just faded away and become naught. But the fact is, there was an event. It was a miracle took place, and that miracle serves as evidence that Jesus is who He says He is, and now I can believe that, not because I just believe in general, but because I actually believe in an event, in a sign, a miracle. It's my evidence. That's why I believe, and I'm confident about it. My faith. Now we're using belief and faith like the rest of the world does. And it's not mystical. I believe in the sign. Like I was saying, John documents 7 signs. We're going to hit, next 7 weeks, we're going to hit each one of these signs. And today's sign is this first sign. And this first sign, it's almost humorous, okay? And the first sign is when Jesus turned water into wine. What if I can, get you to, kind of put yourself in the context of the book, in the backdrop. Don't say it. In the backdrop of the book, okay? John doesn't even really tell us about the miracle. It's like, okay, John, now he's outlasted everybody, right? Peter's dead, Paul's dead, John's in his 90s. He's on the island of Patmos. He's in it's a penal colony. He's under house arrest. He has a male secretary with him, a scribe with him, and he because of it's a different Greek that it was written in. We don't believe John wrote the book himself, but he dictated it to a secretary that, a scribe that wrote all these things down because of the kind of Greek it was written in. And so there he is. He's an older guy. John, you got to write this stuff down. Everybody else is dead. Paul's dead. Peter's dead. Matthew's dead. They've all gone. You're the last standing. You've got to start documenting some of this down. And John decides that, you know what? And I don't know if he knew it at the time, if he said, yeah, I'm going to tell about 7 different signs that prove that Jesus is who He said He was, or if it was just the Holy Spirit led and guided him, and that's kind of how it ended up. But the fact is that he chose the first miracle, the first sign of Jesus proving who He said He was, and it's somewhat, it's somewhat humorous, okay? And so if you can get in the mode, in the backdrop of what Paul or John is trying to say, and we'll start in chapter 2, verse number 1. All right, and here we go. And the 3rd day there was a marriage in Canaan of Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. Okay, it seems pretty basic here, straightforward, right? There's a wedding happening, and Mary, Jesus' mother, was at the wedding. But you need to understand, in their culture, weddings were a big deal. I mean, this is bigger than a bar mitzvah. This is bigger than the Passover, any feast they would have, because it's a personal feast. But it's a big deal, and it's such a big deal, they would go on for days and days. No one really knew how many days. It isn't like, oh, my daughter's getting married, we want you to come, get a motel, spend the day. No, spend the 2 days. No one really knew. You just kind of got an open-ended invitation, and they basically had a party until the food and wine ran out, okay? So this is a big occasion. Now, next screen, he says this, and both Jesus was called and his disciples to the marriage. All right, so it was kind of a status symbol. If your family's having a wedding and they're very expensive, and people would save up for them, and that's part of why you would have a dowry and all that to kind of help finance the wedding, because you're going to go on for a 7-day party or an 8-day party, and you got to pay for it all. But at these weddings, it was kind of a prestige thing to have rabbis and their disciples to come to the wedding. So if you got a wedding and there's 3 or 4 rabbis hanging out, you know that this is an uppity family. I mean, they must be something, because they had like 3 rabbis show up to their daughter's wedding. This is amazing. This is great. So anyway, back it up a screen to verse number 1. Something I didn't tell you, but the 3rd day there was a marriage in Canaan. The mother of Jesus was there. What we learn in the text that we're about to read is that evidently Mary was a part of the planning committee, or maybe the catering. Maybe she had something to do with the catering. Maybe she had something to do with the food. Well, that's redundant. Catering is food, isn't it? Sorry. All right. Maybe she had something to do with setup or. But Mary was in this thing. Now, maybe it was a relative of hers, and she felt obligated to help, or maybe excited to help. But Mary was a part of it. Now, Mary being part of it. All right. 2nd verse again. It says that both Jesus was called. He's a rabbi. Got to have a rabbi at your wedding, or you're really not. And 2's better, 3's great. All right, but you got to have them there. And they got their disciples. We know that all good rabbis got a little following, right? And Jesus is called. All right, everybody on board? Nod your head. Thank you. All right, thank you. Some of you are asleep. Wake up. All right, let's go. All right, so verse 3 says this, and when they wanted wine, the mother of Jesus said unto him, they have no wine. She felt the pain here. She felt responsible in some way for the fact that in other words, everybody's expecting a 4, 5, 6, 7-day wedding, and we're already out of wine. I don't know how that happened. I don't know if somebody put a hole in the barrel on the way over here. All we know is they've got, everything's in place. They got a big party going on, and the wedding's well underway, and we've ran out of wine, and Mary, feels responsible. So, when they wanted for wine, we need wine. The mother of Jesus said unto him, they have no wine. Now, what's her thinking? Why would she even go there? Why would she go there and think, you know what? We're out of wine, and this is a disaster. This is a big deal disaster. For a wedding and no wine is no wedding. Right? And so she goes to a very resourceful son and says, they have no wine. Why did she go there? Think about raising Jesus. I mean, all that she went through to raise Jesus, the bad reputation rap, pregnant without being married and all that, there was an upside. right? So I don't know what raising Jesus looked like to the mother of Jesus, but I don't know if it's like, I barely got to go to the grocery store anymore. I just, Jesus, we're out of, I don't know if he did that or not, right? Jesus, I made your favorite, ham and beans, but we don't have any corn. Wait a minute. It can't be ham and beans. Jesus, I made your favorite, lamb and beans, all right? Made lamb and beans, and but we don't have any cornbread. So I'm going to go in the other room, and I'm just saying I ain't going to look. But if I come and we got cornbread, God bless you, Jesus, all right? So I don't know what's going on, but he went to Jesus and said, we're out of wine. It's like, Mom, you keep doing this to me. First it's cornbread, now it's wine. I just think about the mother of Jesus going to Jesus and saying, we don't have any wine. What you going to do about it? Jesus says this, right? Jesus saith unto her, woman, now, don't try this at home. Okay? Don't go to your wife and say, woman, it doesn't work. But understand this, and the translation is correct, woman, but Jesus is in a formal setting. His mother's in a formal setting. She feels responsible in some way, shape, or form, or some degree, for there not being wine there, or at least she feels like maybe she can do something about it. And by that I mean get Jesus to do something about it. All right. So Jesus says unto her, woman, and it's in being in a formal setting, he addresses her formally, and this would be like saying, my lady, or ma'am. Okay, not woman, again, don't try that at home. All right, so in their culture, it is a formal addressing of a lady, okay? And so he's saying, my lady, what have I to do with thee? Why are you telling me this? My hour is not yet come. It's not time for me to publicly start. Publicly start what? Publicly start showing signs that I am who I say I am. Everybody's enamored with my teaching, but at some point I'm going to start doing signs that they may believe I am who I say I am. So he says, it's not my time yet. It's not time for me to go public, Mom. And this is Mary's response. Whatever he said, do it. So Mom didn't hear Jesus when he said, I can't start yet. She just simply says, whatsoever he saith unto you, do it. She turns to the servants she's in charge of. Part of the reason we believe she was part of the, catering, right? She turns to the servants that she's in charge of and says, whatever he says unto you, do it. Now, Jesus is faced with a decision. Look what happens in verse 6. And there were set there 6 water pots of stone. Now, this is what just happened. Mama said so. Mama said, you start now. We need help. The wedding's a disaster. You start now. And so Jesus is thinking, Mama said so. And that's where it ought to be, in every one of our lives. Is Mom wants it? Mom, I wasn't ready to start. I didn't want to come out. It was not my coming out party. I didn't want to start. I didn't want to upstage the wedding. I didn't want to do some grandiose miracle and people forget about the bride and groom. This isn't a good time for me to start, but Mama said so. Right? And he looks around and he sees 6 water pots of stone after the manner of the purifying of the Jews. So he's saying, this is great symbolism. I'm going to start now. I'm going to do a miracle now because Mama said so. And it says there, containing 2 or 3 firkins apiece. A firkin is around 9 gallon. All right, so if you got 2 to 3, these are 20 to 30 gallon, do the math, all right, 20 to 30 gallon water pots. If you can imagine, those of you that, operate around farms and shops, a 30-gallon barrel. And there's 6 of them. This is probably, as well as 20 to 30, some of them 20 gallons. So this is probably somewhere around 150 gallons. This ends up being 150 gallons of wine. I think the party's going on, okay? I'm just saying, all right? This ends up being 150 gallons. But here's what Jesus is thinking, all right? There's 6 water pots of stone. No, back up one more again. 6 water pots after the manner of the purifying of the Jews. Jews they had oral laws. The written laws and the Pentateuch and Moses and the prophets, and 630 some laws written down. And then they started in on oral laws, and they were all kept track of, and that's part of the job of a Pharisee or a scribe, is to have all these laws, and to know them, have them memorized, and these oral laws, all right? And part of them was the washing process. They were fanatical, because they always believed, we got the better diet, we don't eat catfish, what they were missing. We won't eat ham and beans, we'd have to go to lamb and beans. They had no idea what they were missing, how good that stuff is. Bacon, how do you go without bacon? But we got a great diet, so they were really fanatical, and they took it into the washing. And they had a way to wash for everything. Sometimes they washed their hands. Sometimes they had to wash their whole body. Sometimes they just had to wash up to the elbows. Okay? If they didn't have chairs as such, they lounged and they leaned on an elbow and they kind of scooped, I don't know how they did it without Fritos corn chip scoops, I don't know how they did it, but anyway, they scooped and they so when you were going to lounge and eat, you had to wash all the way to the elbow. They had all these rules and regulations. What it tells us is that this is a wealthy, a very religious family, and they've got all these water pots sitting there for the purification of Jews. So here's what Jesus' symbol, and nobody at the wedding understood this. It was because people like John and people like Peter and people like Matthew, they recorded these things, and then we figure out the symbolism later. But Jesus is like, they won't get this, but later you'll understand that there is an Old Testament way of purifying, and it's going to be replaced with something brand new. This is how I'm going to start publicly. That something's here that's better than the old way. That I'm here, and I'm going to prove and give you a sign so you can believe that the new way is better than the old way. So they set the water pots of stone in the manner of purifying of the Jews, containing 2 or 3 firkins. This is 150 gallons worth. All right, verse 7, please, Ash. All right, and it says, Jesus saith unto them, fill the water pots with water, and they filled them to the brim. All right, what are they doing? They're doing exactly what Mama said to do. Whatever he tells you, do it. All right, verse 8. And it says here, and he said unto them, draw out now and bear the governor of the feast. And they bear it to the governor of the governor of the feast is the head waiter. He just makes sure, he knows we are in trouble. He knows this, right? There's no way they kept this a secret from him. But he's making sure there's plenty of food, plenty of wine. He's making sure the music is there. He dictates the order of things, when the actual ceremony takes place, when they eat, when the next meal will be. They usually ate twice a day, big banquets, all right? So they drew out the water out and bear it to the governor of the feast, and they bear it, verse 9. And it says, and when the ruler of the feast tasted the water that was made wine, and knew not from whence it was, but friends, there's a very small group of people that knew a miracle took place. It was just the servants and the disciples and Mary. That was so the servants which drew the water knew, and the governor of the feast called the bridegroom. Said, okay, you hired me to take care of this wedding, and you said, okay, here's the supplies. I warned you that didn't look like enough wine, or did the barrel go, get a hole in it, and we're in trouble here, But he goes to the bridegroom, and he says this, verse 10. He says, and saith unto him, every man at the beginning does set forth good wine. You get the good stuff at the beginning, all right? And when men have well drunk, all right? So when people, are soused, then you pull out the bad stuff because they won't care what they're drinking anyway. Right? So then that which is worse. But you've kept the good wine until now. Nobody does that. Well, touche. Well done. I never thought of that one. And look what it says in verse 11. This is the beginning of the miracles that Jesus did in Cana of Galilee. Although very few people knew it. Very few people knew that a miracle even took place. They just thought a bridegroom pulled a slick one. Beginning of the signs did Jesus in the Cana of Galilee, and manifested forth his glory. And the disciples believed. You know why the disciples believed? Because they saw the evidence. There was an event that took place, and then there was this sign that took place. Then there was an evidence that they believed on him, and that is their faith. Pull up the process. She's got to read my mind. Oh, well done. All right, so event, wedding. Sign, water turned to wine. Evidence, we saw him do that. John saw him do that, and he believed, and he had faith. It doesn't happen the other way around. You don't just, oh, I've got faith. Oh, I believe. No. If you're not going to be talked out of your Christianity, whether someone directly talks you out of it or circumstances push you out of it, you've got to be talked into it. And the fact is, Jesus was who he said he was. And we're going to look at the 7 signs. And it begins with this miracle of turning water to wine. It's almost as, when you read the story, it's almost like, oh, everybody already, John's old. Everybody already knows the story. They've heard that's a good one. They've heard it 1,000 times. They want to hear it 1,000 more. Oh, yeah, he's at a wedding, turned, and water to wine, and, it was a big disaster, and man, and somebody says, oh, the purifying of the Jews doesn't happen by the washing of water out of pots. Something new, something better is here. And it's Jesus. And that's my evidence. And that's why I believe. And that's why I can have faith. So, verse 12. Catch me back up there. You got to read between the lines, but you're going to have faith in me. Okay. After this, he went down to Capernaum. He and his mothers and his brethren, this is his actual brothers, and his disciples. And they continued there not many days. They continued there a few days. It was Mother's Day. I know I have no real proof, but I think it was Mother's Day. He did a miracle, and then they had a little family get together. They probably all got together, went out in the driveway, and threw a rock in honor of Mary the mother. So, back to John 20. Many other signs. Many other signs. Truly did Jesus in the presence of his disciples, which are not written in this book. But these are written, these 7, are written because it's your evidence that you might believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God. In believing, you might have life through his name. So, next time you think, you just got to believe. You need to, next time you go to say, you just got to believe. You need to remember that, wait a minute, I need to talk them into it so they can't be talked out of it. Father, I pray you would speak to our hearts. I pray, Lord, if there be somebody here today that's never been saved, that they might understand the evidence that Jesus was who he said he was, and that we can have faith in him. We can believe in him. We ask these things in Jesus' precious name. Amen. Stand, please.